3, 2, 1, go.
All right, so firstly, you can see that I have a black background, and you can change yours here. Just tap here and you can change it any color you want, but I prefer black. Let's go to the camera and make sure that we're in orthographic. This is the snap cube, so sometimes you'll see me kind of tilt and then I'll hit front. So this just kind of shows you the direction that you're looking at the sculpt. Also, you'll see me go back and forth with the grid. So the grid is here. Sometimes if I want to look at something straight on, I might tilt it a little bit and then hit front. So let's bring in our image. Let's import our image. Okay, so we'll go to this little icon here and reference image. So let's tap here and then import photos or wherever you have the image, and let's do this little guy. Okay, so we'll X this and then hit transform. That's so we can move this image around. So we'll put it right here. So here's our tools on this side. You can see that they can expand and collapse. So I want to go here to the shading tab and then let PBR. I'm going to change the matte cap. And it's not that different, but you can choose any of these that you want. Sometimes I just like to choose one that I don't really use often. We'll go with this one. So if we go to this little folder here, you can rename. So right now mine is Toy Troop. So you can rename it to whatever you want. And we're going to save often. So I'm going to hit save. Okay, so let's make this the head. So we want to use the move tool over here. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And the head, you can see, it's almost like squarish almost. So we're just going to kind of stretch this sphere to make it more of what we want. So using the move tool, and you can see right now move is both of these sides, but it doesn't really help us because we kind of want the back to be affected as well, I think. Okay, so we'll use move, and we have symmetry on. I'm going to make it fairly big, and I'm making it fairly big so it's more of a smoother movements. Okay, so let's just take the bottom and sort of push it up. Let's take a look from the side and just kind of see how we're doing. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. You can see how everything is just more smooth if the brush is bigger. So I think that's actually pretty good. That feels all right. So I'm just going to make this, maybe the back a little more square and the front as well. It's got a really cute head. So maybe something like that. So I'm looking at the top side now. The top is a little wide, so I'm just going to squeeze that together. And I might make it a little bit smaller, and I might just make it a little more kind of squarish on top. Just a smidge. Just a little bit. Not everyone might know what a smidge is. All right, so now let's look at the side view. So this is the way that this is now. And it looks pretty good. I want to make sure the front is kind of flat. And I kind of want the back to be a little bit larger than the front. You can see that like I kind of go overboard with like the amount of details. So you can, do that amount, or you can do you don't have to be as crazy as me, but I just get kind of crazy with it. I can't help it. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So one thing I always do, once I'm happy with the shape of the head, I like to take smooth. I'm going to make the smooth tool fairly big. Again, symmetry is on, and I'm just going to smooth it out. Okay, let's look back at the front. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. So you can see he has two eyes, and they're sort of recessed. The eyes are a bit round, and they look like they kind of go in at slight angles. So let's just do that now. So let's hit add. So we're in the scene menu, and we'll hit add. And I think for this, I want to use cylinder. All right, so just for the sake of our eyes, I'm going to make the cylinder dark. Not our eyes, but you'll see what I mean. So here's our cylinder. You can see that there's different options here. Let's make this end a little bit smaller. So again, if you don't see this, you can go to your gizmo So the gizmo's right here, and you'll see the gizmo and then this little option. So these are just options that you can use before you validate. So validating is making it like an official part of the project, but before you validate, there's always a few things that you can do extra to each piece. So for example, for this one, if we wanted to make something random like this, we could do it. So let's make the front a little bit smaller like this. And yeah, we can shrink it up a little bit like that. Let's go ahead and shrink the whole thing. So we'll go back to the gizmo. It looks hidden, but it's there. And let's shrink it. Let's bring it forward. We'll shrink it. Okay, so now we can move it over. So the eyes are kind of maybe around there. So I want to rotate this 45 degrees. So let's go to snap over here. Snap just allows you to snap rotate. Right now it's 90. So if I go like this, there you go, that's 90 degrees. So it'll only move in 90-degree increments. So we want to snap 90 and have it forward so it's like a cork. And then I'm just going to try to position it a little bit more. Maybe I want them a little bigger, maybe around there. So this is just a good time to figure out exactly where you want the eyes. So I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and use this green arrow to move it into the head. And then I want to rotate it, but I have to take it off of snap because if I'm on snap, it'll go all the way. So we'll just tap, snap. Let me make this a little bit lighter. That might be easier to see. So now we can just rotate it a little bit. Maybe something like this. So just a little bit of an angle. See, it's a little bit of an angle. It's not facing forward completely. But I think that looks good. Okay, so I think this is looking pretty good. So remember when you're placing the eye, if you don't have a lot of space to the left or the right, then you might have to take the head and then you can make it a little more wide or a little more short, whatever you need. I'm gonna make mine a little bit wider. You can take the eye. If you tap on the eye and hit mirror, then you can see where it is on the other side. So you just want enough space in here for the mouth. So I might make these a little bit smaller perhaps, and make them a little bit wider just to make sure I have enough room for that mouth here. Maybe a little bit higher too. So once you get that perfected, you can leave the mirror on. That's great. Just go back into your scene menu and label the mirror eyes. I'm going to label this eyes as well. Why not? Let's save. Okay, so for the mouth, let's go to our scene menu again and we'll add, and I think we want to do let's see. Let's do a box. Let's get crazy. I'm going to paint this the same color. So I'm just going to tap the paint all. And then I'm going to shrink it. And then I'll just pull it forward. Okay, so now we can kind of shrink this up and make it the size of the mouth. Maybe a smidge smaller. I guess I use the word smidge a lot. I never really noticed it. So the cool thing that we can do, since we haven't validated yet, we can tap these three dots and post subdivision. We can just move that up to 2 and then take division X and whoops, and then just scroll that down to maybe we'll do 5. I think 5 works. So you can see it's a little more round, kind of works. Of course, you can play around with it if you want to do it a little bit less. You know, that works as well. That looks cute. So you can figure out which one you like better. And for the size, I think it actually looks pretty good. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, maybe move it up a little bit. It looks like it might be right in line with the bottom part of the eyes. So that's a good way to kind of figure out where you want to have it. Make it a little bit smaller. Okay, yeah, so I like that. So I'm going to take this. If you go to your scene menu, you notice that we accidentally put it in the eye mirror. So just long press and drag it out. And now it's just its own box. We can press here, name, and we can put mouth. Let's go ahead and hit validate down here. And for the eyes, let's go ahead and hit validate as well. All right, let's save. All right, so next we're going to use Boolean. So what a Boolean is, we're going to use this shape to cut out of the white sphere. We're going to use all these shapes to cut out. But before we do that, we want to duplicate all of these so then we can make them black and see how the little eyes kind of like inset. Okay, so let's take the eye and let's just move it all the way to the edge, right about there. I think that works. So now we're going to take this eye. Let's take both. Let's take the mirror and the eyes and just clone it. We can hide those by hitting the eyes, the little eyeballs. Okay, so let's take this and let's validate. Yes. So now we have these two eyes here, and what we're going to do is take these eyes, we're going to select the sphere as well. So we want to use the Boolean, but we want to take this little eyeball, we tap it, and the eye should go away. It's still selected, but the eye is invisible. So if you're having an issue, you might have to go advanced and uncheck sync visibility. Let's say you don't do that, you might have this issue. So go to advanced, sync visibility. And now you can hit the little eye and just the eye goes away. You can see the little ghost of them here. So now what you want to do is hit Boolean and Boolean. Okay, so that's pretty much like what we want. I'm going to undo because I want to take the mouth and I want to clone it, and I just want to do them all together. So we can even bring the eyes back. So just go to the mouth and do the same thing, clone it, hide it. Then we'll take the mouth, the eyes, and the sphere. We'll hide the eyes, hide the mouth, Boolean, Boolean. So now we have those sections. Looks good. And because I painted it, because this is white and because I had those pieces painted, whatever gets cut, the inside, it's almost like the paint gets stuck on the inside. So that's just something that happens. You could always just paint it white if you wanted to. Okay, so now, so here's the sphere. Let's go ahead and rename that. So we just want to tap these three dots, name. I forgot I never told you how to do that. And we're just going to name it head. Okay, so now we have these eyes and we have the mouth. So let's just take the eye and let's just drag it out of the mirror. So there's only one eye. So there's a few things that we should do, because obviously you can see that it's a little messed up here. And if yours looks, if you ever wonder why your things are looking pixelated, it could just be smooth shading. So if you tap here, there's smooth shading. If I was to turn mine off, it might look a lot cleaner. For now, I'm just going to leave it on, auto. But yeah, that actually cleaned it up, smooth shade, turning smooth shading off. But that's okay. So what we want to do now is soften these up so we can put them in there, because we kind of want this more round. So there's a few things we can do. There's this new little, is that a beaker or a flask? Flask? Beaker? So whatever this little option is, you can use smooth, and let's see what happens if we smooth this out. See how it kind of gets round? Which is like exactly what we want. So then I'm going to take this, take the gizmo and just kind of flatten it. I'm going to bring it out some. I'll flatten it a bit more. So we essentially, I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. We want to put this in there so it's like right on the edge. Make it a little bit smaller. And I'm actually going to tilt it a little bit as well, so it kind of matches up. So I think that looks pretty good. I think I want it a little bit smaller and a little bit further inside. So I'm going to tilt it a little bit more. So maybe something like that, just so it fits right on the inside of the face. I'm a little torn because I can actually, it actually looked really good if I turned smooth shading off. This looks like so smooth. So I might just leave that. You know, I mean, why not? might just leave it. I'll make this a little bigger. Push it in so it's right on the edge. Kind of like that. I'm going to go ahead and paint it black. So I'm going to grab this little color cube here. We'll go to black and we'll bring the roughness up a little bit. Okay, so we'll paint that. So now we can go back into our scene and we can just take this and we can add a mirror. So then it'll just mirror to the other side. And now we can rename these eyes. Okay, and for the, actually we can delete this. I could have just dragged it up into that other one, but I forgot. So let's take the mouth and let's paint it black. So we'll paint it the same black, and now we can just kind of move it back. And you can flatten it, but it seems like that's pretty good. The only thing that I'm not really crazy about is, see how there's like a gap there? Like it looks like this needs to be pulled in the middle. You can take move if you really want to, and maybe we want to use left and right, but we also want top and bottom. We want them to match. So let's go into the symmetry tab. And right now we just have left and right, which is the X. But let's also do, I think it would be this one. Let's see. Okay, so we can't really see what's going on. So first let's hit show line, and then let's hit solo. And I'm going to change the color of this just so we can see it. Okay, so here's the X. Okay, so we need to hit local. So now we're just local to this piece. So we'll hit Y. Y is exactly what we need. The back doesn't really matter, so we don't need this one. We just need X and Y and local. So now we'll go back to our move. We can hit solo again. And I'm just going to pull this part forward. That feels a little bit more, feels good. Feels perfect. So I'm going to paint it black again. So I'm going to save. Oops. And also before I go, I like this middle spot here. If I can bring up that. So I like this middle spot. I'm just going to hit my little camera, add view, and then I'm going to hit the little thing, the little pencil, and hit 1. That just saves the scene. So that way if I'm farting around with it and I want to go back to where I was, I'll just tap the camera and then tap 1 and it goes back to that scene. Okay, so let's do the body now. So I think I want to use, I'm debating if I want to use a box or a sphere. I love that round belly though, so I'm going to go with a sphere. So let's bring it down to make everything a little bit smaller. So I'm going to shrink it. And I think I want to stretch it a little bit. And I think that's pretty good for now. So let's validate it, and then let's use move, and let's just try to match this shape. So we'll make the move tool a bit smaller. We can see our line, that's our symmetry line. Whoops, did I just hit it by accident? Okay, so I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. I think it's actually better to take the symmetry and I'm gonna go local and use not the top and the bottom, but the front and the back. So if I tilt it, now we see the blue line. So that's gonna be the front and the back. Okay, so now we can just make this shape, and then we can, when we turn them, we can kind of make the belly come out a little bit more. So let's take move and let's continue to try to make that shape. So it feels something like this. We might be able to make move a little bit smaller and try to get that section where his arms are. I think that might work. And this part is really just manipulating the clay. I like to call it clay.
His mama named him Clay. I'm gonna call him Clay.
So yeah, we're just matching the shapes. And actually, we might actually, how many times can I say actually? We can take trim and rectangle. So this part is definitely going to be flat at the top. So we can either use move and kind of flatten it out, or we can just take rectangle and sort of trim the top. I think that works also. And trim can be a little bit weird. Let me make sure if I go here, trim can be a little funny sometimes. Right now I have it on legacy, so sometimes there's these different trim things. So if I undo, and let's say I was to do that again, but I'll change this to fill. That looks a bit better. So just remember, sometimes when you're using trim, these make a difference. Okay, so we trimmed that there. That's probably all we need to trim, to be honest with you. I'm going to use my gizmo and just make it a little bit taller. And literally right now, it's just adjusting to make this fit the reference. I'm going to make it smaller, and we'll pull down here his little underpants. And maybe we'll do the thing. Maybe we'll pull. So maybe we'll go like this, and then we'll trim the bottom. Okay, I think that works. Okay, so now we've turned it to the right side, and we can just use move, and I just want to kind of fill this out a bit. So I'm going to make move a little bit bigger and just try to fill this bottom part out. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to actually shrink it a bit. And then I'm going to take move, I'm going to turn off front and back, which is Z. So now we should be just on the front, and we can make this one a little bit more round. So I'm going to make the move tool a little bit bigger because we got to get that nice round belly. So I'm going to push the top part back, and we're just going to try to get that little cute belly. And of course on the back, I'm going to push this way. So kind of like how we have that slight S in the spine. That's what we want. You can pull the little butt out a little bit. Okay, I think that works. Yeah, it looks pretty good. I do want a little bit more of a section here for the arms. So I might actually use trim again, and you can use ellipse, and you can make some ellipses to try to trim it. That actually looks pretty good for my first try. Not gonna lie. I thought I was gonna have to do it a bunch of times. I probably should have put Z back on, so that way when I trimmed it, it would have trimmed both sides. Let's see. Something like that is probably a little bit better. So just go to symmetry and put Z back on. That way it trims not only the left and right, but also the front and the back. Yeah, that's not bad. Okay, so there's also a little bit of a dip there. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to take drag, and the front kind of comes down a little bit. So I want to take drag, and you want to make sure that we don't have Z. We want to turn that off because we just want to drag down the front. Something like that. I think that works. Okay. Yeah, I think that looks great. And the next thing, I feel like this is a little long, so I want to shrink everything. And I'm just going to adjust it a little bit. I might have made it a little too round. So I'm going to turn Z back on. And just kind of adjust it a little bit. Okay, that feels better. Probably bring this in a little bit. And the only other thing is where his little underwear. I don't know why I'm calling them underwear. So this is the only part that's a little funny to me. And I'm not sure if I want to. Okay, so let's start this. Let's do this first. Let's take move and let's kind of build out his little backside. So we want to make sure that we turn Z off. We just want to use left and right. And I just want to make this more round back here. Okay, that's a little bit better, but it's sticking out way too far, so I'm going to push that in. This belly, I might have pushed down a little too far. Okay, that looks good. That might be enough to work with, because we can continue to adjust it later on, but I think this might be enough to work with. Okay, and let's take trim again and use rectangle, and I was going to keep this as one piece, but let's just trim it. We'll go to about here. Whoop. Not trim, split. Split, split, split. So we'll go split, maybe around, I want to bring it up a little bit. I think something like that is perfect. So now let's take the top part and let's voxel remesh. So I have a shortcut here. It's the same if you go here, voxel and then remesh. So you'll notice that these numbers are the same. So I'm going to use the shortcut on the bottom. So I'm going to do maybe 150 and just hit remesh. I'll do the same with the bottom. 150 and then we'll remesh. Okay, so these are looking really nice. So we can smooth a little bit. So we'll just kind of smooth, make them really clean, and then do the same thing to the bottom. We'll just kind of smooth. Okay, so we can take the bottom and actually, maybe we want to shrink it a little bit and move it up. So it kind of makes that nice line that he has there. But I like it. I think it looks good. I'm going to take this sphere. Let's make this the pelvis. And then this one, wait, what is this? Whoops, that's the pelvis. And this is the body. So just rename those. And I'm actually going to take the pelvis and I'm going to nestle it here. All right, let's save. Okay, I'm going to add another view. Okay, so let's go ahead and take the body and the pelvis. So let's just move it up and we can just kind of see what we're working with. Okay, so firstly, I just want to make sure, yeah, it's in the middle. Looks good. It's a very big though, so let's shrink. Let's move it up. I think that's a little more kind of close to the reference. Oops. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, and of course you can also, I'm going to turn Z back on. You can also go in if you need to and adjust some of these things. Like I might want to make this a little more round. Okay, so now we have the little neck part. So let's just add a cylinder. We're going to keep it really, really simple. We can actually just paint it. Oh, we'll leave it white for now. We'll just use the gizmo and shrink it with this orange ring. Go ahead and just move it out so you can see it. And essentially, we're just going to make this the neck. So we'll just move it kind of in there, move it down, and now I'm going to paint it black because that'll make it easier to see. Actually, let's do a different color. So something like this. Okay, we'll make it a little smaller. And you can actually hit X-ray if you really want to see exactly where it's going. And this doesn't really need to be that. The size can be smaller, so I'm going to go here and just lower the division X. So I lowered it to about 30. We'll hit validate. I'm going to paint it black again. And then we'll hit X-ray. And that looks pretty good. The only problem is obviously it's a little bit more forward than I want it to be. I have to color it again. So it looks like, I'm going to take the back part of the body and move it down. So I'm going to use symmetry. I'm going to turn Z off because I just want it to affect the back part of the body. And I'm just going to move it down. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to move the front part up a little bit. And now I just want to kind of make this a little bit more even. I think that looks good. And again, we could always go into trim and we could just trim this. Boom. We could always do that as well, which I think is a good idea. So let me paint this black again and just see how it looks. Whoops, wrong thing. We'll tap the neck, paint it black. Okay, so now the neck is in there. I think I want it a little bit thicker. So we're just gonna make it bigger, and you can just, you can make it exactly how you want it. I think I like maybe around there. That looks good. Now the only thing that I'm seeing is this front part needs to come up a little bit, so it's an easy fix. We can just take move and just kind of bring this up a bit. Okay, I think that looks pretty good so far. All right, so next we want to do, we can probably use a tube for the arms. So we'll take the tube tool, path, and we want to start the arm here. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, he's a little too plump, so I might actually have to unplump him a little bit. Oh, and let's take the neck and take it out of the body nestle and just call it neck. Okay, so if you need to, you might not have to. Let me shrink him up a little bit. Okay, so back to tube. We want to use path. We want to start here and then drag to about there. Okay, then we can tap this little green thing. We don't need snap, so we can turn that off. And that looks pretty good. Let's add another node here just by tapping. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to use the gizmo and just kind of push it back a little bit just so it's right in the middle. And we can make it a little bit bigger. So let's go to these little tools here and we can make it a little bit bigger. So we'll just use this orange node to kind of open it up a little bit. And maybe even we'll make this part smaller than this part. So let's hit radius again. And we can just make this a little bit smaller perhaps. And I think we just want to make this thing round. Okay, so I did think about making those round, but I think I want to leave it just like this. I think that looks a little bit better. So we are going to have to sort of rotate this a little bit. All right, so next, let's just open this, and I want to give it a little more resolution. So let's just hit post subdivision, maybe twice. Let's do it 3 times, and let's take the division X, and let's just move it down to 12. I think that works. Okay, I think that looks good. I kind of want this to be tilted a little bit more, but I think maybe we can do that with a different tool. So I think that looks good for now. Let's go ahead and let's mirror it. So let's go up to our scene and just name this arms. Okay, so it looks really good. Make sure you save. So now let's make these little shoulder pads. So let's go, doesn't matter where we put it, let's just have head. Let's add a sphere. I think that's the easiest way to do it. And we can validate it. So now we just need to make we need to make it in the shape that looks something like this. Now it looks like it actually goes all the way around his arm. I'm going to take trim, and let's just trim this in half, like so. And then I think I want to trim it like this as well on the bottom. So we have something like that. So let's go ahead and voxel remesh this. So let's do maybe like we can do 150. So we'll remesh it, and let's use the little beaker. Let's see if we can use this smooth option. So we can drag that down and it should smooth out. Yeah, I think that looks good. So I'm going to move this over and maybe shrink it. And I think that looks pretty close to what we have. So I'm just rotating it with this blue ring. And I think it looks pretty good. Now it's really close to the top of this other little part, so I'm just adjusting the placement, and then we can adjust the arm. The arm is the easy part. Okay, so I think that's a good placement for it, and a good size and a good fit. So let's take this little sphere. This will be shoulder white. So we can add a mirror. And now we have it on the other side too. Easy peasy. All right, let's save. So for these little cuffs on I think I want to use the arm for that. So we'll take the arm, and I just want to make sure the size is good. The only thing I was thinking about was maybe making this a little bit bigger. Again, I'm like crazy about details, but I think that looks good. So let's validate. So we'll go into our seam, and I'm just going to write arm on this so I don't forget. And I'm actually going to bring this out of the mirror. So later on, when we mirror them back, we'll see if I remember to just drag it back up. Okay, so let's take trim and line. So with line, whatever's in white is the part that's going to get cut. So we want to make this sort of this cuff. So let's clone this arm. So we have arm 1, and let's just rename it arm cuff so we don't get confused. So we'll put cuff. So we just want to trim about there. Okay, so we'll drag with the line, and we want something like this. That might be a little high. Let's take the gizmo now, pivot, center pivot. So that should center it on the actual object, and we should be able to make it a little bit bigger. And we can shrink it too. move it down. So you can see the cuff is right almost on the edge of this line. So I just want to make sure that's an easy way to kind of get my bearings of where I want it to be. So I think that looks decent. Maybe a little bit bigger. And let's see what happens if we use the little beaker and we use the smooth again to kind of smooth that out. I think it looks pretty good. So now I want to take drag. Let's see what happens if we do symmetry and we go local. Let's see what that looks like. So I think I want to switch from X to Z, because this side, you can see the part that the back part of the hand is going to be here, and this part sort of comes out further. So that's why I've switched the symmetry to Z, so I can use drag and I can just drag this part forward. I want to make sure that I have the symmetry highlighted here though, or else it won't work. So now we should be able to drag this to give us something like that. And even this side, I think that looks pretty good. You can take smooth also, and you can sort of smooth it out. I think that looks pretty good. Might be a little long, so again, I'm just going to adjust it. But I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so the arm is almost peeking out, as you can see if you hit X-ray. So I'm going to trim the arm. We'll just take line, and I want to trim all of this. That way the arm is not peeking out. And you can see I have a lot more space here, so I need to adjust the arm. So I want to take this and I'm just going to move it up so there's not so much space there. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Okay, and as far as the arm goes, I'm going to take the move tool. Let's go ahead and go to symmetry and local, and let's switch to, it looks like we want Z. And we want Z because we just want to turn symmetry on. We want to use move, and we want to make it so it's flush up to the body. So literally we're just dragging it up to the body. Like that. Okay, oh, and I forgot to look at this direction for this little piece. So I need to shrink this so it doesn't look so crazy. Yeah, we just want this to be kind of over the arm like that. And the arm looks good. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'll save. Okay, so the only other detail is maybe you can take the bottom of this, of his little wrist, and just sort of push the bottom up a little bit. Maybe like kind of in the middle. Yeah. Again, these are just very minor details, but I'm absolutely crazy about little details. So make this a little smaller. Move it up a little bit. So now I need to take this and just trim this again. Okay. So now this little piece for the arm, we're going to do that really easy. We'll just use a cube. Okay, so these are the arms. We can go ahead and add that back to the mirror. And then the arm cuff, we can actually, let's add that to shoulder white, because that's also another mirror. We'll name this armor. Okay. So for his little hand, we'll just add a box. I want to make sure I don't have it inside this. I just want to drag it out. Okay, so now we'll just take the gizmo and we just want to move it to that position. Okay, so we have, so we'll have it around there. We'll make it a little bit thinner, a little bit smaller maybe. We'll push it up flush against this. And now we can make this really round. So we'll just tap these 3 dots. Again, post subdivision to 2. And we'll bring this division X down until it's nice and round. I think that looks perfect. So now we can just use our gizmo and we just kind of widen it out so it's a little bit more even with the rest of his little wrist. Okay, I think that works. And I want to give it a little bit of a bend. So let's go ahead and validate this and then use the move tool. And now we want to make sure that we have the right symmetry. So let's go to the symmetry, show line, can't really see it. We'll do local and then X, no. So we want left and right. I think that's all we want is left and right, which is Z. So now we'll use move, make sure symmetry is on, and we can just give this a little push. I'll make it really big. We'll give this a push. Yeah, that's not bad. You can actually pull from this side as well. There we go. I think that's a nice round, kind of rounds it out a little bit. So now we'll just do the gizmo and just put it back where it's supposed to be. All right, perfect. So these other little pieces, the thumb, I think I want a cylinder. So let's name this palm. And then let's add a cylinder, and this will be the little area where the thumb is. So we'll go ahead and put this in position. So we'll put it right about there. And you can see it's sort of tilted. So it's tilted a bit, so let's go ahead and rotate it. Like that. We can look at the size. It's not, maybe a little bit smaller, but remember you can also go into the options and let's make the back part a little bit wider, and this part can be a little bit smaller, like so. And I just want to kind of nestle it in there. That's good. And I want to make this round, so of course the same song and dance we always do. The 3 dots, post subdivision to 2, and we'll bring the division X down until it's nice and round. I think that's perfect. Okay, so I'm going to validate this. I think it looks good. Maybe I'll make it a little bit wider. Feel free to adjust yours. And now for the rest, I think we want to use like little spheres, little stretched, little sausage spheres. I think that's what we want to do. Let's do a quick save. So let's add a sphere and let's hit solo. So we're going to make these little sausages with solo. So I'm going to shrink it. I'm going to go to symmetry and change it to X, or change it to Y, excuse me, the green. So local and Y, we can validate it. Go to symmetry, make sure that's on. Go to vertex here, and then go to vertex. So symmetry and then vertex, vertex. And make sure you're on Y. And the reason why we're making sure that we're on Y is so you can see this green. So we're just going to stretch this with the arrow to make those little sausage fingers. Okay, so we'll just stretch this. You can hit solo again, and let's take vertex and go back to auto and turn symmetry off. And now we can just move it into the location and just make sure the size is good. So we'll just shrink it. Whoops. Gotta be careful of that. That's the worst. So I think the size is pretty good, and I think we can use these for the other fingers as well pretty easily. So let's see, did we already validate it? I guess we did, huh? Okay, so if we validated, let's hit voxel remesh. I'm just gonna do like 120. And then I'll take smooth and just smooth this little guy out. Oh, and remember the symmetry is still on, so we can actually, let's actually just turn it off. So we'll turn symmetry off, and we should be smoothing out the whole thing. 4 fingers. I love anything less than 5 fingers. So we'll clone this one. We'll move it down. And we'll move it over here. Clone. And move that over. Clone, and we'll move this over. Okay, so now we can just start back at this one, and then we can start rotating it. I just think it's easier to keep it straight up and down when you make these versus when you kind of maneuver it. Things just get a little more complicated when you're cloning. Okay, so let's go ahead and put this where it should be. Let's give it a little bend. Something like that. Maybe a little bit more of a bend. Okay, and you can always stretch them. If the fingers are a little too round, you can always stretch them a little bit. And this part you can always trim off. You can just use trim and lasso, and the parts that you don't need, you can just trim them off and never think of them again. Okay, that looks good. Oh, there's another little piece there. Oh wait, no, there's not. I got nervous for a second. Okay, so I'm gonna take this. I wanna look at the space between the two. Remember that song? So I wanna go there, and let's go pivot, center, pivot. Let me shrink this a little bit. Okay, let's do that. And I think I might want to, I want it to be a nice curve. So I think I'm going to keep that there. Let's bring these little fingers up. And it looks like they're all okay. So now we can work on one at a time. So we'll put this one in, maybe rotate it a little bit. And this is a pinky, so I'll make it a little small. Oh, keep doing that. So now we'll tap this one. Maybe we want to rotate it a little bit. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And this one we want to rotate. Okay, so now I'm just going to take move. So symmetry is off. And I just want to take move and just move these little spheres. Okay, we can flatten the underside. So this one too, I always like to kind of make them a little bit more round. I think that looks pretty good. So let's take this and we want to spread out the left and right. So let's push that in a bit. So it looks nice and flush with the wrist. I think that looks good. And you want to make sure you have enough space for these little fingers. So I'll just make it a little bit more round. This guy I'm going to move over a little bit. I think that works. I think that looks good. The hand looks a little different. Let me take move. Okay. I think that looks good. You can actually take, let's see, the arm cuff, all of these spheres, and you can hit solo. We want to see the palm, and we want to see this little cylinder. Okay. So now if you tap on one of these things, you can see without having your vision blocked by everything else. I think this looks good. I just want to drag it into the hand a little bit better. And this, I might just kind of flatten up a little bit, or make it a little bit round, more round. I think that looks good. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that hand. I think it matches pretty well. I do have an issue with this though. Nice. Okay.